Frontiers Unchained.
Today we have a special guest, Michael Messele. Michael was born in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, but spent most of his working life in the city of London, working for different financial firms. Before Michael discovered crypto, first to Bitcoin, and later on he moved more and more into the Ethereum space, starting Etherspot. In between, Michael actually found time to start a company in Ethiopia, and he will tell us a bit more about the challenges and opportunities he faced. In particular, by using open source software, you could leverage systems which are already out there. A lot to unpack here, and really looking forward to this conversation. So, Michael, let's get started. Tell us a bit more about yourself. So, Michael, welcome. Tell us a bit more about your journey. How did you get started and where did you start?
Thanks, Petros. I mean, you're asking me a long question. I mean, I've been around for a while. So let me see. In my previous life, I call it my previous life. I used to work in the city of London, which is the financial center, with financial institutions and investment banks, providing the technology side and a bit of the finance side. So effectively, I was building, say, things on market for software systems for processing market data, market risk, complex things where I had to understand both the technology and the finance side. So I suppose before the phrase fintech was coined, I was one of the fintech guys. That's what I'm talking about. The last time I worked in that sense was around 2010-ish, 2011-ish. So that was my background, and then I was also involved in another startup in an emerging market, which we were doing directory inquiries. Just gone.
Maybe we can start a bit earlier. Before you got into London, like, what was your background? Where did you go to high school? What were you like? What kind of person? Were you very interested?
Even before then. Okay. Where do I begin? Okay, I was born in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And I went to high school for those of you that know Kidana Meherat School, it's a Catholic school. And I went there, and in my teenage years, I ended up in London. Then while in London, I did do computer science studies. Then I worked for a few companies, and I ended up working in the city of London, which is the financial capital of the UK, working for financial institutions, investment banks, dabbling technology and finance, because I was working on complex financial instruments. I had to understand the financial side as well as the technology side. So I pretty much became a fintech person before the phrase fintech was coined. And that somehow, then after that, immediately after my long stint in finance, I wanted to do something different, something that I thought I wanted to share my experience. So I was involved in setting up a directory inquiry business called Afalagi in Ethiopia. Basically, anyone can phone up and say, I'm in XYZ part of town. Can you find me? Can you tell me where I can find a place that serves pizza or that kind of stuff? And because Google was not serving emerging markets very well. So we thought, because if you think of the directions you would require in those areas, instead of putting the postcode, you'll be saying, oh yeah, the pizza place is behind the petrol station on the junction of this and this road next to the yellow building or something like that. So that's the sort of setup we had. But because I was still fresh in the finance world kind of thing, and I did hear about Bitcoin around 2010.
Yeah.
Ish. So that's where my story begins in the crypto world. I know I'm kind of going ahead of the question here.
Yeah, because it's really interesting. Like, I mean, obviously you were so early in the space, right? And so you have seen all the good, the bad, the ugly, the opportunities, the challenges. I will definitely dive into that. I just want to go back for the listeners a bit more to like your pivot first into finance. Like, why did you go into finance? Why did you go to the tech? Maybe like from tech company without any financial component to it? And the second step is, how did you go from fintech to building a company in Addis? What were your thoughts? Why did you do it?
Yeah, why did I do it? Why did I get into technology? I suppose I was a teenager and I thought I could do anything, and my family were advising me, what should I do? When you grow up in the society I grew up in, if you have any ambitions, you say, I want to be a doctor. I want to be an engineer. Pretty much realized when I was, I think, around 14, 15 once, I got sick and I went to the hospital and I didn't like what I saw in the hospital. So I thought, I don't want to have anything to do with medical science. Then, okay, engineering then. And it turns out someone said to me, why don't you do computer science? And that's in the 90s. So I did computer science. So something I could do, said, okay, I can do this. Yes. Then, because you do computer science, it doesn't mean you work for a software house. You work for any company uses technology. Mm-hmm. So I ended up working for a telecoms firm, British Telecom, for a short while. Then I found a role in a financial institution that deals with technology. And this financial institution was providing financial data. So when you have trading throughout the whole day, end of day trading data, and those kinds of, there's a lot of data generated. So I was working on those sort of platforms. Then I ended up working for an investment bank. Then in this case, it was using complex trading things like exotic derivatives, and being able to represent this, and for risk managers to run different scenarios, but for you to create the platforms for them. So those are the things. Basically, they're technically challenging. Then when you start learning about the financial world, you think to yourself, should I have gone into finance in the first place? What am I doing in technology? You ask those questions as well. So it was only natural for me to learn a little bit about, I must understand how the finance works then. Yeah. Then, so when you work in those investment banks, in those types of institutions, especially in London, you meet people from all walks of all corner of the earth. To be honest with you, the talented guy from country X would end up working with you. You say, wow, these guys are smart. Yeah. So then you compete well and you learn quite a lot from these people as well. So, and then how did I end up doing after working in finance, fintech, I called it, in setting up a venture for myself. Now, when one of the things you get working in investment banks, at least in my case, in the cohorts that we were working with, you felt like the world revolved around the stock market. You see, it's just, the stock market is down. This is happening. So Lehman Brothers went down. This came up, because it was during those times as well. I was in there. Then you think, the whole world revolves around this. Then also my background tells me that there's a lot more world out there. There are people that wouldn't know a thing about the stock market. And by the way, they have existed for thousands of years before then. Yeah. So that's when I realized I needed to share a little bit of the knowledge I have gained working in these various setups and mixing with esteemed company in terms of the abilities that the people I've worked with, to say, okay, why don't I set up a company? So in this setup, it was literally a bootstrapped company. When I say that, the first person that was collecting data for us, she was sitting on a borrowed space in a games place and just in a corner collecting data and typing it in. And there are kids out in town. She sends kids, say school kids that just do part-time job for us, to go around every shop and asking for details. It was that level of really grassroots setup that we had, where we started everything from scratch. Then I come back home from work every night and say I finish work, maybe 6 o'clock or something. I get home at 7 o'clock. From 7 o'clock until midnight, I'm working, creating software systems for these things. And I had no knowledge of creating a data entry application, but I had to learn it. So that's the thing. The mentality that you get is, If you want to get it done, just get stuck into it. I'm not sitting there, oh, I wish I had some money in someone. I can hire someone from X place and I can hire somebody else from Y place. Oh, yes, they're cheaper. They can do it for me. Heck, just get on with it. If you have an idea, I figured, oh, well, I have to learn this thing. How long will it take? Get on with it. Then speaking to people. In fact, this is even another example. Then I said, okay, let me quit my work in an investment bank and set up this company. And everyone is thinking, you're crazy. And I was actually thinking, oh, well, I'm bored with this thing. And I was basically, shall I do an MBA or shall I set up a company? I said, heck with it. Let me just give it a go. And I live once. So when we were setting it up, before we were setting it up, I was speaking to someone. He mentioned about some other places where they had a call center, say in India and that. And we thought, why don't we just convert this thing into a call center? Then there came another question. I asked around, setting up a call center is an expensive business. Yeah. And the consultants come and say, oh, you have to do this, we can do that, but we'll charge you by the dollar, by the hour. It's just, everything is intimidating. Then I went back to being me again. I said, heck with this. Came back to London, 3 months, researched it. What are the systems that I need for a call center? There is an open source system which you can utilize and build on it yourself. I see, I can do that. Then I got a laptop. I got a PC. I managed to connect my phone, my normal phone, to that PC. Now my PC answers my calls. Hang on a minute. Then I went into the investigation of this open source call center system. Then I said, okay, I have a choice. Should I just take this and roll it out, or should I get a supported one? Because my staff that I will hire in Ethiopia would need to learn how to use this thing. So, okay, as a backstop, we hired a company that rolled it out, but built on this open source system for minimal support from India. But we set it up. So we set it up using 20 used laptops. Not laptop, PCs. What I did was, it's a massive story, this, yeah. What I did was, there is this sites where you can find used PCs. This is around 2011. So I phoned them up and I said, okay, per every flat screen and a PC, I'm going to pay £100. So basically for £100 for the whole set, I drove around London, everywhere in London, and my car boot was full of PCs. I go to get 2 PCs from this guy, 3 PCs from that guy, 1 PC from that guy. So I got the 20 used, because my principle is I set up the company for as cheaply as I can. Then once the company starts making money, it can look after itself. It doesn't need me. And that theory actually worked, in that with those used PCs, then we used everything open source. So Linux operating system and everything. And the 2 advantages to this. Number 1, there would be no licensing issues. Number 2, in places like Ethiopia, one thing I realized is everyone uses Windows and everyone has virus. You touch someone's PC with your finger, you probably catch virus. Never mind. So having the Linux operating system was a sort of protection against that. It doesn't mean you can't catch worms and that kind of stuff from using a Linux, but it was less prevalent for you to do so. And the other awesome thing about it was, once I set up the basic environment, the call center application, the web server that works with it, and all the things set up, you can save that with all the machine, all the contents on one memory key at that point. So what it meant was, if one machine breaks down, you can just plug it in and refresh it and have everything back for the person in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So for support, for the maintenance side, that was key for us as well. So, did I give you too much information, or is it the sort of storytelling you wanted me to tell you?
Exactly. That's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. You showed a few things here, right? And I think the first thing is that you can have open source software, which does a lot of things. I mean, you talk about a call center now, but you can have like a meeting app. You can have an office variant. You have so many things which is open source, which people can use without having any credit card or any access to payment gateways to buy something. You can use it from anywhere in the world, and that's quite fascinating because when you started that back in those years, there weren't so many software apps or you could actually use. If you look now, maybe 10, 12 years later, there are so many things which are open source, and people should really use those things out there. And it's very fascinating. You tell me,
But even in
yeah,
even in 2011, there were loads of open source apps. It's just people weren't switched on. They were always thinking of Windows.
yeah. Well, I mean, why would you pay? I mean, back then, why would you buy a Windows package, or maybe for $250, $500? I don't know what the price was back then. Instead of something you can use freely, right? You need to learn a bit of skills. You need to, obviously being a bit uncomfortable, and then you can actually use it freely, and you can maybe make a business out of it because you can resell it to maybe your fellow people next to you, right? Who actually want to have the same service for a lower price. It's so easy to make a company these days. That back then.
Yes, I mean, the desktop, we were using Linux-based desktops, Ubuntu. So much so, when, if I give someone a laptop, I make sure I put Linux on it on purpose. So that, number one, the usability has improved quite a lot to be so close to Windows now. At the same time, it gives you a lot more flexibility and a lot more technical skills you can gain. And especially if you're of technical persuasion, you can use a lot of software and upgrade yourself in terms of know-how on how you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because nobody says I want to have a Windows, I want an Apple computer, but Ubuntu, Linux is also there, right? And it's much cheaper actually if you want to have any dApps there. And it's good to show at least to our listeners that there are different options. I mean, most of them know it. There's
100%.
If you don't.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of it, at least in those days to me, because broadband was not as easily accessible. It may be the case right now as well. The fact that I can have the whole machine in one memory stick, and the fact that I can use that memory stick and go to any machine, plug it in, and log into my own system was an amazing thing for me. And the fact that I can use that memory stick to completely, if I wanted to, refresh and reinstall my system. If something happened and it crashed, it was really useful. So for someone starting out with no budget, with limited budget, that is the easiest way to bootstrap. When you think about it, even massive companies use Apache server, this and the other for running things. And these are open source systems. Quite a lot of the popular softwares that you see nowadays have become open source. It's just that they have a support mechanism that you build on top of that for enterprise customers. But for entry points, they're open source because people innovate. The more technical you are, you do some change and you contribute to it as well. And so you might think contribution, why am I doing something for free for some other software? Number one, you increase your skills because no one is going to accept your garbage code if your code is not good enough. But if it is good enough, reputation-wise, you've actually managed to be accepted and to contribute to a code. You are on the conceptual level, you are contributing to society, to the openness of this world. On a practical level, by doing so, you've got a CV that speaks for itself. Anyone can go and see what you've done. It's not just you telling, I can do this, I can do that. But it is your CV out in the public. This girl is competent.
And before we get to a bit, I want to zoom in on that a little bit on what's competent, because in the past you used to send your CV to a company and they basically apply to it. But now, if you look at the tech world, especially in crypto, it is more like what kind of source code do you produce? What kind of things do you have on GitHub? It's more what did you do instead of where have you been, right? I'm not sure if you see the same things as a founder.
Yes. I mean, when you work for corporations in general, if you are a software developer, you have a source repository. and mainly they will be closed to that company. And when you have accounts like GitHub, it is basically your private one. So nowadays, even in the corporate world, they do ask you to do some tests and to commit these tests into your GitHub account. But imagine if you've been contributing software to very many software, open source software, and I myself have contributed bits and pieces to Amharic writing software kind of thing, just because of the work I was doing for myself. Then when I see a dialogue that creates a keyboard, I convert it to Amharic and I add that to be accepted. Or even when Google Translate started, they were asking people to translate for them. Google do not pay me a single thing, but I thought I owed it to society. So I was one of the earlier ones translating things and just getting brownie points. And contribution, open source contribution is an ideal where if you can't do it, you contribute so that you'll get back for yourself. And ultimately, what it means is when someone tries to hire you, in fact, I was recently speaking to someone in an event where he says he's never applied for a job or he's never had a CV. And I asked him, so how do you get this last job you had? He says, there was this company, he says, I liked what they did, he said. So I was contributing to their code base and always adding things, features, and etc. And they reached back to me and said, do you want to work for us? And I said to them, no, I don't want to work for you. No, but you are contributing more code than our employees. So they went back and forth and they started paying this person. And he's one of the highest paid person. And I met him actually in an event in Singapore where, no, it's in a different event. And this guy was set up his own company, but he's an expert in this specific knowledge space because of this contribution. So it is not just idealistic, but this is a new way of being noticed.
Yeah.
When you put it on your CV, I can put your CV for you and I can say, do this, say that. And in some places, we have actually even seen people taking tests for them where someone is being interviewed, another person sitting on the other side giving them the answer. But that's for a story for another time. Yeah. But if you have a rich GitHub public repository you can show to people, it means your quality of work speaks for itself. Yeah. Someone can go and actually look at the work you've done and say, this person is competent.
Yeah, I think that's such a valid point you made there, right? And it's more about competence. It's not where you're based. If you're based in London or you're based in New York or Berlin or any other place in the world, it's more like what can you contribute, right? Especially with remote working now, it's more about what skills do you bring to the table. And to also emphasize here, GitHub is free. Open source is free. All the tools we are talking about now are basic, or most of them at least, are freely available, right? So everybody can use most of these tools if they want. They can download it and they can start using it basically today.
I could add more to this. And I did mention earlier on how I did my own research to set up a startup company, this and the other. Surely, if we've said something that, what did they mean by that? Just pick that word up and Google it. I'm not telling you what open source is.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, you can Google these words, right? You mentioned here. I mean, you need to be innovative and, get a bit into uncomfortable. I think you have done that as well, being in banking between 2000 and 2010. That's 2 years where banking went from open outcry to digital trading. That also was an innovation which was taking place. So you were always bit in the space where new things were happening. The old paradigms were breaking down and new trends were sitting in. So that's quite interesting, because then we go to the second part, let's say, of your life of a configuration like that. Because then you got into crypto. Bitcoin first, or how did you get started?
That's the thing. I've been racking my brain to remember the first day I've heard of Bitcoin, and I can't remember, but I still was in banking. I think it's just after it came out, I vaguely remember mentioning it. So somehow I got into it, and people tell me, in fact, recently, a friend of mine reminded me in 2011, we were somewhere in London, sat, and there was, I think, a Bitcoin machine, and I was saying to him, let's buy some Bitcoin, let's buy some Bitcoin. If only I practiced what I preached. But yes, I heard.
You're happy about that?
No, I said if only I practiced what I preached. If I did practice. Because in 2011, 2012, people tell me, I was telling them about this new way of decentralized economy coming. And it's just the whole idea resonated with me. So that's the first time I kind of went into Bitcoin. And I think I do remember when I heard about Ethereum, though, because somehow I think I was looking at someone's LinkedIn and I saw it says he works on Ethereum. I said, what the heck is this? I went and Googled it and found out. I said, first impression I had, Bitcoin knockoff. That was the first impression I had of Ethereum. So yeah, that's when I kind of went into it, and apart from reading about it and etc., the first thing I think the first actual contribution I had was, I think around 2014, I wrote an article on how the Ethereum blockchain can be used by clearinghouses in the financial institutions. Clearinghouses is where, say, if you have insurance kind of thing, where different companies bid, and they have their own little knowledge fiefdoms everywhere. And the whole idea was for them, if they were to use a blockchain, they can have a clearinghouse where they do not need to physically share this information anymore. It would be there by default for them.
Basically, where they settle the trades, right?
Are you there?
Basically, it's an entity, an intermediary where all the banks settle their trades.
Exactly. So I wrote this article and published it on LinkedIn. One or two people that were active in the space reached out to me, and I had a chat, and it didn't go further. But then a year or so after that, I saw some companies of those I've mentioned having some sort of clearinghouse system like that. And I really hope they were inspired by me, but I'm just clutching at straws there.
So let's get back. What was the first thing you did when you saw ETH besides was it writing the paper, or did you actually start buying ETH, or did you went for the ICO, or did you actually start developing there? What was the first thing you did when you saw Ethereum?
That's the thing. Yeah, that's fascinating in that I always blame myself with these things. I'm always early, there or thereabouts. I just watch them, read about them, and maybe say for instance, Bitcoin, even though I like the ideals, maybe I treated it like some pizza voucher or something. So I said, I'm about pizza vouchers. And the same thing with Ethereum. First reaction is, Bitcoin knockoff. Then I really, that was my first reaction. I remember it because then I said, hang on a minute, but they have this Turing machine on top of it, basically programmability on top of it. Then I started looking at it. And again, at this time, I was doing an MBA course as well. So I was extremely busy to get hands-on. So, but in between, I do check these technology things. And I was actually, as people tell me, just trying to evangelize people on the merits of initially Bitcoin, then Ethereum, the decentralized world. So once then I decided, okay, I really want to get involved in this space. As I said to you, I wrote this article, and because my background was in finance, it's so telling. I wrote it for a financial institution, how to do this reinsurance. It's not quite insurance, but it's more a technical thing. But ultimately, for all the banks to share all the info on a blockchain, and the regulators to be able to observe that. So cuts out all these steps where they have to send daily feeds to this daily feed, so that the regulator asking them 50 million questions, where there will be a node watching themselves and getting the same data. So that was the general premise. Then after this, I thought to myself, I'm getting bored with technology, but in terms of the technology, meaning because writing code myself, but at the same time, when I wrote that thing, can I contribute in other aspects? Then I realized the best thing to learn from me in the space was, why don't I just join a hackathon?
Yeah.
I think in 2016, there was an online hackathon, and I joined up in there, and I joined up with a team, and then I started observing how these things work, how the people work, the different ideas, what they're working on. I'm always attracted to the financial things. So it says trading, or where it says market making, or any of those things, then they kind of interest me because of that background. But I ended up working on trying to work on a hackathon project where supply chain systems are being handled by the blockchain. And I have no understanding of supply chain, and it doesn't resonate with me anyway. But that is the first thing I worked on. At least they exposed me to something which I was uncomfortable with, or something I had no knowledge of. So I suppose that goes with the story, what a lot of people say to you. If something makes you feel uncomfortable, probably you should put yourself in that position so that you learn quite a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very interesting what you say there, right? If things get uncomfortable, then you should maybe push yourself in that position and learn about it. I mean, that's the only way to move forward and to make progress, right? I assume. Because if you get
100%.
uncomfortable, you're not moving
Yes.
forward.
Because if I know everything by heart, then I kind of know everything about it. I just want to look good and pretending like, look at me, I'm an expert. But if I immerse myself in something I don't know about, you've got a lot of room to learn.
But yeah, then you had a good banking career. You go to Addis, to Africa, to start an African company. Then you start dabbling into the crypto space. You see it happening. You're looking at it. You're feeling at it. You're actually writing a few articles Then you join a hackathon, and then at some point you start your own company. There's a lot to tell about that, but eat the spot. Maybe you can tell me, like, why did you start it, and how did it progress from the start?
Yeah, I mean, before Ethersport, there was Pillar. So during this hackathon, I meet people, and one of the guys that I met says to me, "Oh, there are these people who from XYZ company, 2030 company, they've joined. I see them. They met up in London." He says to me, "They met up in such and such place in London, and that is about a mile down the road from where I live." So I'm thinking, how come I didn't know about this? Then somehow I reached out to these guys. And I went to their discourse, used to be called, and I reached out to them and chatted with them. Then I wrote them an analysis of what they were trying to do. I wrote them, I think, some SWOT analysis or something of basically saying, this is what you should do, and sent it to them. Again, this open source thing, contribute to people. Then they let me in, and then I started chatting with them, and then we ended up working together. And it was during the times, this is late 2016, and now it's beginning 2017. And there was this period where companies were raising funds, or groups of people come together, work on a project, and there was this thing called ICOs. And did I tell you I was involved in an ICO? I didn't, did I?
Not in this podcast. I want to go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, we set up this called Pillar Wallet. So we set up a wallet for crypto projects, and we run an ICO to do it. ICO is initial coin offering, where you offer people tokens, and they send you Ethereum. Cryptocurrency in those cases was mainly Ethereum, to fund your project, so that they will have these tokens and the project will be going on serving things. And the idea we had was, it was from a guy called David. It was his book. The idea was creating a personal data locker, meaning imagine if all the data you generate using your Facebook or going to the doctors or surfing the net, all of that, imagine you were able to control it. And if you were able to control it, if you were able to monetize it, or to decide on how to monetize it, who to monetize it with, who to share it with, and who not to share it with. So when we created the Pillar wallet, we said maybe the time is right now because of the advent of it wasn't called Wave 3 then, the advent of blockchain. You can control your data through your private key. So we said, okay, why don't we launch this wallet? So a good 40 or so people, we collaborated, but a core of about 10 of us worked together, and we set up the Pillar wallet, and we raised funds through that way. And that wallet still goes, and that was in 2017. And we were like, whoa, one of the stars now of the space now, because we've raised this much funds. It was a lot of funds we raised at that time. Then in going through the process, we learned with the setup that we have, probably we need to set up a smart wallet, smart account-based wallet, so that it can be more like Web 2. You can do transaction limits in your setup. Oh, you can do spending limits. I mean, you can say on a day, it says to you, you spent $20 or $100 or whatever. You can't withdraw without verification or something. What if I do a recovery option? In that, one of the big things about the decentralized world, as much as I like it, is the small print where you are on your own. If you lose your private key and you have $100 million in that wallet, those $100 million are lost. There is no help desk you can call and say to them, please, sir, I've lost my key. Can you recover it for me? It does not work that way. You can't call up the Bitcoin company and say, I want to speak to the CEO of the Bitcoin company. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So that's why we wanted to go with the smart account and set up the smart account ability within the Pillar wallet. Then ultimately we said, why do we need to have the smart account SDK, which is software development kit, just heavily tied in with the Pillar wallet? Why don't we make it its own setup? Hence, Ethersport was born. So we set it up as Ethersport further down. So that's the history of how Ethersport, a Web3 infrastructure company that is making the average person use Web3 technologies far easier, was born. It comes from the Pillar wallet.
Well,
I'm sorry, you asked me a simple question and I'll go on a long story.
No, thanks for sharing that. I think it's a very interesting story. You know how everything started. I think the ICO boom was in crazy time in the crypto space, right? We pivoted away from that. We moved forward a bit more. It was really interesting to see how you build one project and you pivot and reiterate a pivot, and you actually come to a very useful product in my opinion. But I also want to emphasize you maybe, and please add on, if I'm missing something regarding wallets. When we talk about wallets, we maybe are talking even about physical wallets or bank accounts, but they are basically on your computer, right? So they're fully decentralized. And as you said, you have the private keys. So you have full control of that wallet. Nobody can take it away from you unless they get your keys. Nobody can force you to do something. You are always in control of the wallet. And if we compare it to, let's say, a bank account, in a bank account, you have an intermediary where you put your money in. But with the wallet, if you're based in Africa, in America, or you want to send somebody money to somebody else, you can always do it because you always have control over that wallet. So it's fully decentralized, no intermediaries, no people who can control your wallet and force you to do something. And that's a very, very important thing to highlight. And I think it's also something what we maybe will see in the future, because why do you need a bank account if you can just use the wallet? Of course, there are some pitfalls, if you lose your keys and all the stuff, but if you have some social recovery component where you can use an email or something, somebody builds that, it can actually be a use case, but you're always in control of that wallet. And that is something that people still, I think, in the developed world of Frontiers don't understand, that you can actually store value in that wallet as well. to a certain extent. You can have dollars in the wallet or USD.
100%. I mean, basically, with whichever jurisdiction you live in, let's say, for instance, if I owed Petros $30, if I pay him the $30, it goes from my account to my bank account to my bank that runs that account, then it goes to his bank, then his bank account, roughly speaking. Now, at any point, those intermediaries can say, no, I'm not sending this to them for whatever reason. In fact, a certain jurisdiction can come and say, oh, this Michael Messele, can you freeze his bank account? For whatever reason. But if I use a decentralized wallet, that's the whole key, decentralized. There is no central entity, intermediary, allowing it or not allowing it. It means no one on earth can freeze my wallet account. It is with me. I can send it to Petros at my own leisure. That's the whole point of decentralization.
Yeah.
Then
This so strong.
there are some pitfalls.
What you said, they're so strong because you are also, you have no intermediaries. And it's free as well, right? I mean, not all wallets, but most wallets are open source. They're free to use. Or at least there are some.
Yes. They're free to use. Then they can ask, how about the entry points? How can I get my first crypto? So now, say for instance, my first crypto, I got paid for doing something for someone. And people then can buy crypto using their cards. Then you'd say to me, but hang on a minute. I live in rural parts of Africa somewhere where I have internet, but I barely have credit card or Visa card. So how am I going to buy? Now that is an issue. Yeah, you won't be able possibly to access the existing financial markets where you have a Visa card or a MasterCard for you to be able to buy crypto from institutions that offer crypto. I fully follow that. But what if then I say to you, you were a talented artist who can draw nice illustrations and you put this on Instagram every time and someone says to you, guess what? If you can draw me a logo, I'll pay you $100. And you say, oh man, that would have been nice, but how do I get paid? Because then they okay, you can send it to me via Western Union. I think they will charge you some 7% or something. And you added a friction to this person. They have to go to Western Union or something to send it. Or maybe they can do it online. However, this can be done through your wallet. They can send you a stablecoin, what is called a stablecoin, basically a USD or American dollar denominated crypto. And they can send it to you straight away into your wallet. And you've given them this illustration and logo, they've paid it to you. Then you can say to you, but what do I do? Can I go to the local market and buy a bag of potatoes with it? Maybe not, because you have to convince the person selling the potatoes, oh, this is the crypto thing, and they haven't got it. In some places, in fact, I was speaking to a company the other day in South Africa that deal with solar panels, and they use token payments and fiat payments. And now what they've done is, I think they're called Moment, this company. What they've done is they have vouchers created for different businesses. If you have a crypto, they give you the voucher and you can redeem these vouchers in a restaurant, in a shop, and those kinds of places. So the physicality aspect is coming there. But one of the other aspects you would benefit from is, so you are this artist, as I said to you, and you wanted to buy things online, but you were unable to do them. Oh, you wanted to buy yourself a domain name or a domain host, which is a host, which is for your website, which is hosted outside of the country you're in. But because you didn't have any credit card, you couldn't do it. But this $100 worth of work you did for drawing this logo, you can actually go and find a company that accepts crypto to buy your domain and to host your website. There are those services. You can consume online services. It means you can be part of this wide world, which you have been excluded from for being from a poorer jurisdiction, for not having Visa, MasterCard being the gateways. Well, I'm not even mentioning American Express here, but the credit card companies being the gateways. So if you are unbanked or find it hard to get your credit ratings, you can do it through these mechanisms.
That is very, very strong point which you made there, and I think there's 100% true what you said. I also want to emphasize is people think it's a long process to do it, but you can actually do it in 2 minutes. After this podcast, you can download the MetaMask wallet or any other wallet, and you can just download it.
I would say the Pillar wallet, but yeah,
or Pillar wallet. But you can just get it done, and you can get them. You can just get it done, and it's very easy. And also after this podcast, we'll put in like a walkthrough guide in English, but also maybe in a few other languages underneath here, so people can actually read through it. So now I want to make the circle round, the circle we had, right? Regarding open source, regarding free access to open source tools, regarding all the information available on the internet. You can just, if you have an internet connection and an old laptop, preferably Linux, in your opinion, but any laptop, you can start honing your skills. You can get into uncomfortable topics, uncomfortable information, maybe seeing new products you are not used to, and actually build out your skill set, which you can later use for employment. And you can even work remote. You can stay in the village or in the place you are with internet connection and actually work and get paid in USDT, in stable coins. And thereby you're making a salary which may be low in the West, but which is, of course, in the country you are quite high, right? So these are things this is not happening in 5 years. This is already happening now in the current age, and has been happening, especially during COVID, accelerated a bit. But this is very common practice. If you're a good engineer, if you have some skills to bring to the table, people will hire you. They won't ask where you're based. They will just ask you to do your skill set. And that's something very important to emphasize. And also, I just want to say another thing, and I'll give you the word, Michael. And this the final thing is also regarding being part of the global economic system. Also implies that if you get paid in USDT, you can actually use it to buy capital goods anywhere in the world. So you can buy manufacturing goods, you can buy a solar panel, so many things you can buy all over the world because they all accept stable coins. So you can buy something Alibaba in China on the internet, or you can buy something in Europe. All these things are accessible to a certain extent on the financial side. Of course, you have customs and other things. So this is the world happening now. So thereby I want to say to listeners, you should be part of it, especially if you are in frontier markets, let's say, or emerging markets. But go ahead, Michael. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, in terms of working, so I can tell you in the company I work with, we have people from pretty much Uzbekistan, India, Pakistan, the USA, quite a lot of Eastern European countries. You name it. At one point, we had people from South Africa. Then you name it, wherever you're from, if you have the skill set, and as we said earlier on, show your skill set through your contributions to open source projects or collaborating in different aspects. Go and join a community, a Discord group. Something takes your attention, try and find out, and they'll probably have some community if it is in the Web3 space. Go and observe what they say, then start talking to people, then contributing. You will learn a lot of skill sets. The more skills you have, your geographic location would not be a barrier for you to gain employment or to meet your future business partners. All you would need is internet access, and unfortunately, that is easier said than that. Some places do have them, some places do not have them. But if you do have the internet connection, yes, you can spend the whole day commenting on someone's pictures on Instagram or following someone's TikTok thing. So you can do some research for yourself, and in terms of bettering and empowering yourself and creating the next Facebook, the next TikTok. Maybe you could be the person that creates the decentralized Facebook where the data is owned by the individuals and individuals can monetize their own data. And you get, as the infrastructure provider, you get your own commission on top of that as well as the solution provider. But think of being able to do things yourself, but by gaining knowledge and worldwide audience you will have, both in terms of users and as well as employers and other collaborators.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Use your time wisely, of course. And just to name one more thing, and that's more regarding the opportunity. If you look at, well, and we'll go dive into that. What's the future of, what do you think is going to be the future of Ethereum or any other blockchain, especially in frontier markets? But before I get there, if you look how big Ethereum, how big the blockchain market is, I think we just hit 2 trillion total market cap or total valuation. And if you look how many developers are working in this space, I think I was shocked. I had a previous conversation with Tony, and he said like there are maybe like 10,000 really, well, okay, he's good Solidity developers. And if you look at Rust, that amount is even smaller. So if you think crypto is going to be the future, at least, well, the future of the internet, Web3 space, then it's still very early. So and people who are working in this space don't have 20-year experience, 10-year experience, you can still get there in this space quite not easily, but quite quickly. But you do need to put in the sweat, right? And I think the 10,000 hour rule is maybe a good benchmark there. We hopefully have motivated a few people to actually dive into the crypto space. Well, now I want to get a bit more technical with you, Michael, as we have covered, I think, all the motivational words, and we keep talking, and that's always nice. It goes easily. That's always good. But maybe more about Ethereum, right? I mean, over the time, we see Ethereum taking more and more TVL, becoming, well, next to Bitcoin, which is more, storage of value. Ethereum, people are actually building on Ethereum, and maybe Bitcoin as well. These last years, they're starting to build more and more. But Ethereum has really changed, maybe not the way how we look at crypto, but they really actually got some adoption for a few dApps. What is like? If you look at the crypto space now, right, we see all these layer ones popping up on the Move chain, like Aptos, Sui, all the different ones, and we have all the EVM chains, with all the EVM chains with Arbitrum and all the other ones we have popping up as well. What do you think? What's your view on the future of like blockchains? Will we have like one layer one, or will we have a few others next to each other, or how do you look at that? Do you look at modularity a lot? What's a bit your view? And I know it's a broad question, but I'm just going to give you the leeway to answer it how you like.
Yeah, it is interesting. Yes, I mean there were Ethereum and other blockchains, the Ripples, etc. And Ethereum seems to have been the one that resonated with the developer community. By far, the most developers are involved in the Ethereum side. And when we say involved building on top of the Ethereum, you can call it, make an argument, say platform, because it's a global computer where you can build and dump on top of it. And once you put it in there, it's immutable. You can't change it. The immutability has those aspects we've mentioned about private, the ownership and that kind of stuff. But what I see is, then Ethereum was slow in terms of the amount of transactions you can process, and more than that, the expense. Because at times on Ethereum, even now, even recently, I paid $4 or $5 for a transaction. Now, if I was someone, say, living in Ethiopia, and I had internet access, where $1 is about 100 birr, you think I'm going to spend 550 birr on pressing a button? Give me a break. That's not going to work. That's like me putting a like on Facebook. Oh, that's going to cost you 500 birr. Are you having me on? That's not going to happen, is it? Especially in places in the emerging markets where the per capita income, meaning on a yearly basis, someone earns less than $100, spending $5 on pressing a button is a luxury that not a lot of people would touch. So having the scaling solutions that make the process of sending transaction on Ethereum way, way, way cheaper and making it faster make complete sense. Now, last I checked, I think there were over 190 or odd other L1, layer 1 or L2 scaling solutions off of Ethereum. Now then, from the practical point of view, you think to yourself, the friction that they cause. Sometimes I want to do something on a specific chain, and they charge gas on that chain, on their specific native token, but I can't easily get that token, so I have to get it from somewhere. We had to wait for 7 days to get some token onto one chain. Now, then as a user, compare that to me using Twitter. I tweet. But Twitter, in their setup, imagine they could have different databases. If you retweet something, maybe it's connecting to Oracle database. If you upload a picture, maybe it's connecting to GraphQL. If you like someone, maybe it's connected to SQL Server. But as a user, they do not expose that to me, and nor am I interested in what database you use in the background. So if I'm the average web user, we call that Web 2 user, I might be thinking, look, I follow what you've been telling me. I can own my own, in this case, crypto or money, with no one can go and say, okay, you are frozen. However, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to go and learn how to use all these systems, because so that is what we have in terms of the proliferation. Hence, loads and loads of solutions coming, or at least budding solutions to abstract this away. Abstraction is important here. And for those of you who use contactless payments, think of the abstraction that is involved in there. All I do is I go to the bar, get a few beers from my mates, and I touch the pay point and I walk away. If that was not happening, what would I have to do? I would say, okay, plug in, insert my card, put in the PIN code and pay. If that wasn't, what do? They come with a card reader, I put it in, the guy puts in there, he reads it, the manual process, then I sign it. You see how more and more involved it is getting as time goes back. So the whole point is we have to make the user experience in the Web3 space, in the crypto space, in the blockchain space, as comparable to the contactless existing financial world. Yeah. Just one thing, I know we're talking about the crypto details here, and I did mention Web 2, Web 3, so I don't know whether I need to define those terms to the user base.
Please go ahead.
Just a simple explanations I'll give you. I used Web 3 a couple of times as synonymous to the blockchain world. Imagine when the web started, say you started using the web earlier, say in the 90s or whatever, the websites that we go to where you can read a lot of information. Oh, I can read, someone published this article, I can read this, I can read that. So they were read only. Then the next iteration came. Now I can contribute to this web, because Facebook, when I post something, Twitter, when I said something, YouTube, when I add something, and all the other ones where users can add, or MySpace was before Facebook, I suppose. That's when I can actually add, contribute, crowdsource information. In fact, this era disrupted the control the media companies had. In fact, in the US, we had a president elected over Twitter because of the connection he can create and completely cutting out the media. So think of that as Web 2. Then you can, because the Web 1 was just reading only, Web 2 was contributing only. Now, I talked to you about controlling my financial assets earlier on, my cryptocurrency. No one can freeze it out. But what if I extend this and say to you, crypto is just the entry point. Ultimately, as the personal data locker idea I've mentioned earlier on, using the infrastructure and the setup we've learned through the blockchain world, we can secure all our data that we generate on the internet. And you say, I don't generate a lot of data, you might say. Yes, you do. Every time you click on something, People are watching. Never mind clicking. Every time you use your mouse and move it around, people say, this user connected from this and this machine from this country at this time, and they did this, and they would identify you, and they can even follow you wherever you go to whichever website. So don't you worry about being followed. You are being tracked. So Web3 means even if you were tracked, that data would not basically, even this tracking becomes your domain. The data you generate is not kept by the companies like the Facebooks and etc. It would be kept by you, controlled by your key. Then you can use your key to define, then there will be loads of applications built on top of that that would allow you to be able to auction your data. Imagine your wife was expecting, and because of this, you were looking at prams and children books and all sorts of stuff. The marketers have looked at that and they would send you advertising based on that. Without you knowing about it, you are the commodity here. But with Web3 giving you control of your data, effectively what it would be is, yes, you might allow them to send you because you can give them that data yourself. You can monetize it and you can get rewarded for it. So Web3 means the evolution of the web. So ultimately, when Web3 technology becomes norm, we're not going to call it Web3 as much as we don't call Web1 or Web2. It would just be a technical classification. That's what I meant. Yeah. I just wanted to address this.
Thank you. And it is very clear what you just said there about Web3. And I feel even can pivot a bit more forward, right? And look at the whole AI boom, what happened the last 2 years. The data component is so important. You can see it now, the training language models on that. That's so valuable to have that data. That is something that people sometimes underestimate that. And of course, maybe that's also one of the reasons why crypto adoption to a certain extent hasn't happened yet, because the current powers of as might are not really willing to allow to share a lot of data, right? Having said that, well, this is just an assumption I'm making. Having said that, maybe
no
final part of the conversation, and then I really want to maybe focus a bit more on adoption. Like, and I know we discussed it already. We're like, what you can do with the wallet. But with crypto adoption, it's not really happening in the Western world, but also not really happening in frontier markets at the moment. And is this something, because we do see a few fintech companies, right, who have like a user interface, UI, UX in the Web2 world, let's say, and on the back end, they are running on crypto systems to clear or to make settlements with different counterparties. So that's already happening. Do you think that's going to be how do you think crypto adoption is going to happen? Is it going to be a linear thing, or do you think it's gonna hit sometime where somebody comes with a super app and then it happens?
I think, first of all, we have to solve the usability challenge. For someone to come up with a killer app, we have to make it easy for the software builders to create that thing without the frictions. Let me just give you just a simple use case. I have 500 USDC, and say I'm on Gnosis chain, or let's say I'm on Polygon. Polygon is an L1 that is quicker and cheaper, relatively cheaper compared to Ethereum. And I wanted to, because I have $500 and people have said to me, but you can invest it in the crypto space. And I said, okay, let me convert this $500 into the crypto. And I go to a called them fiat on ramp, and they allowed me to swap my $500 into, say, a stable coin. Then he said, okay, Petros, I've got my $500. What should I do next? And he says to me, because you are on Polygon, guess what? Easiest thing for you to do is to add this, to put something on, it's called liquidity pool on Gnosis chain. Oh, okay, I can do that. He said, yeah. Then when I tried to do it, and Gnosis said to me, their website is called DApp, Decentralized app. Their app says to me, oh, you haven't got any funds. I said, but I have this $500. I said, Petros, I have it, but it says it doesn't work. And the thing doesn't work. Then Petros says to me, no. What it is because what you have is on Polygon. You have to, first of all, move your funds to the Gnosis. And so, what do you mean? So the dollar I have is not good. No, he says to me, the dollar you have on Polygon is different to the dollar you have on Gnosis. So there is this thing called bridging. You have to bridge it. Oh, then I said, okay, I learned and I bridged it and said, try to use it. And he says, you have no gas in your, and I go to Petros, look, you said it works. It doesn't work. I've bridged it as you said, but I can't do it anymore. Oh, he says to me, no, because on Gnosis, you pay DAI. You use X DAI to pay gas. You have to get some X DAI. What I'm trying to draw for you here is the ecosystem. It is designed first and foremost for control of data for ourselves. And that has meant it is so unusable for the average person. So what we've been doing over the past few years and looking at these friction points and saying, okay, how can we solve these friction points without compromising on the individual control of their assets? Now, we have made tremendous progress in that. Still some frictions left. So I can basically, I normally reference the Web 2. The moment we can compare to Web 2 user experience, then by definition, we will have an enhanced experience for the user because they can use it the same way they can use Web 2, plus they can own their data. So before the super app comes in, we have to enable it with the infrastructure. We're getting closer to it. And in fact, the thing I've mentioned to you earlier on with this South African solar panel monetizing company, basically what they do is you buy a solar panel in South Africa and you get rebates from the government, and they use some sort of tokenization model for you so that you can earn rewards from the solar panel, because the more solar energy you generate, you can put it back into the electricity grid and all sorts of stuff. And you can earn rewards from it based on that. And then these rewards, you can take them out at any point and use them in your local shop, etc. So we have to improve the usability for people to build apps that resonate with people, the end user. So to build the TikTok, they have to walk, they have to learn from what the Facebook did with YouTube did. And before Facebook came up, there had to be MySpace and all those other ones. So we are sort of crawling, and we're about to start working, and then we will be running soon.
Yeah. Mass adoption will only come if the infrastructure, if you basically everybody can use it. My parents can use it without any friction. Then mass adoption will come more and more easily. On the other hand, also need to side note here, focusing on the frontier markets. The population is quite young there. They are internet savvy. So I think, and maybe an interesting take here, I think maybe in frontier emerging markets where the population is young, people are more willing to learn new things. I think adoption will maybe come earlier there than if you look at the Western world, where people are maybe a bit older and maybe less willing to learn new tools. Or don't you think that, or do you think the system will made in such a way that you don't even know if you're using Web 2 or Web 3?
That's the thing. If you look at the technology adoption life cycle, you have the technologists, then you have the enthusiasts. Then after you have this tech enthusiasts, then you've got a gap to get to the mainstream market. Because the mainstream market would have a lot of requirements for it to be usable for them. Whereas the technologists, they built it. The enthusiasts, they have no problem doing a bit of the things themselves. So in the Western world, in general, that's where we've seen. In the emerging markets, we haven't even seen quite a lot of those. But ultimately, when you give me a technology without me having to know what you've built it on, because let me just ask you, we're using a tool called Riverside.fm today. Do you know what server they're running to run this thing? Or what protocol they're using? Or what video details that they have to run the service just the way we are? I don't. Do you? That's the point. That's the point. It has to be at the level where us, the end users, and the consumers, because you are the end user, then who's building a product on top of this technology? Your product is a podcast. So, but as the technology, the business builder on top of this technology who's trying to activate millions of others to build on further things, the fact that the details of this technology are abstracted away enabled it. So with Web3 as well, it would reach a point where I wouldn't have to know which server, which one. I would have abstracted traces. Oh, you want to go the expensive route or this route or that route, and where the wallet I use will be maybe tied into my phone, or it would be tied into my social login, or it would be tied into my biometrics.
Yeah.
So the fact that I'm using a wallet would be just like, oh, you're using your Apple, use your fingerprint to open your Apple, or use your fingerprint to open your phone, or your iris scan, or it would be soon at that level where the friction of me having a wallet would be so minuscule. The concept of a wallet is simple. If I've got a wallet in my pocket, it's just the same one I've got one in my computer, but which can do a whole lot more. So yeah,
I think that's a very good end. That conclusion that you made, that eventually the use case from the physical world, like having a wallet and having that on your computer, you use it for the same things, right? To pay, to do a transaction, to pay something. But what you can do with it, how it's set up, is of course totally different. With digital wallet, you don't need to get money out, as you said. You can just transact with zeros and ones, with bits between each other, and you don't have any physical aspect of money or any risk associated with that, or any. You also have principal protection, as you don't need to hold the money in a certain currency. You can choose what you want to do, so you get a certain amount of ownership over your own assets. And that is, I think, in the Web3 space, what's really nice, because you're never dependent on intermediaries who are basically settling a few different transactions and forcing you sometimes to actually basically have control over your assets, and they can force you to things you don't want. So that's, I think, the first use case. But in addition to that, also what you said regarding privacy, data. I mean, there's so many use cases out there, which unfortunately we don't have enough time to dive in a bit more. I think the privacy one and the payments one has been for some time now, but will also stay, in my opinion, the biggest use case for crypto.
I mean, payment is the low hanging fruit, so to speak, because the companies like the Western Union are so there to be disrupted with the percentage they charge you, when you can do some work and get paid automatically into your wallet. Then you can use the same funds to buy services, online services, just like that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a few cents few cents only to transact on some chains, right? Western Union is always like $10, something like that. So yeah, even more in some case.
So then when you have a vibrant system, I think Kenyans, Nigerians, etc., they do have, I think, South Africans, an okay crypto ecosystem where you can convert it to local currency as well. But you can also, as some have shown, you can have a setup where vouchers can be used, and you can redeem those in any shops, restaurants, and all those kinds of things. So Web3 is something that is coming, and don't be left behind. Look into it, and you will benefit greatly from it.
Thanks, Michael. Very early in the crypto space, one of the founders, and also been active in the Ethereum space. Thanks for taking your time. Thanks for sharing your journey, your knowledge, and hopefully we inspired some people to actually get started in this space. We'll also provide some information down the link with some nice sources you can use and get started. I mean, you can get started immediately. You don't need to wait for it. Information out there. It's open source. It's free. You can just look into it. You can browse into it, and hopefully we see you building in the coming years. Thanks, Michael, again. And
most definitely, thank you. Most definitely, if you are a builder in this space and you have gotten your hands dirty, and we do provide an account abstraction solution from Ethersport, effectively meaning making it easy for you to attract people and get into the crypto space. So use ethersport.io or tweet us and send us any messages. We're really happy to respond.
Ethersport, that was right. Ethersport.io, just to be sure that everybody heard it.
Yes.
Also, we'll include it in the title.
We'll send you the links. Yeah.
Thanks.
Frontiers Unchained.